The afternoon 2005, and we're here with the informant Mr. Bud Fry. And so I'd like you each to introduce yourselves and tell us where you are from.
I'm Emily Dixon, and I'm from Colorado Springs.
Very good.
Jeff Lewis, I'm from Seattle.
Okay, Jeff, you have to speak up a little.
I'm Brittany Scritchfield, and I'm from Lafayette.
Very good.
Colorado.
Lafayette, Colorado, right? Okay.
I'm Brittany Pfiffner, and I'm from Lakewood, Colorado.
Very good. And?
My name is Diane Vandergiesen, and I am from Aurora, Colorado.
Very well. Okay, I'm mostly Coloradoans here. All right. So we're here with Mr. Bud Fry, who grew up in Weld County. You all know a bit about Weld County. Yeah? Okay. So let's just start with questions. Well, Bud, we talked in the first hour about growing up and his life out on the farm. And so we're ready to start into other questions. So who's first?
Are these questions?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Let's just start with.
Can you tell me about your parents and grandparents?
Well, my parents was pretty well from around here too. My dad, in fact, he was born at Evans, Colorado in 1900. My mother was born 1908 at Snyder, Colorado, which is down towards the eastern part of Colorado. And she grew up later on down Denver, Colorado. She went to college down there, actually in a Catholic school. But she learned at her age, in them days, that was a long time ago, she learned shorthand and how to write exceptionally well. But they lived on a farm after they got married. They got married in 1929.
And
No, maybe it's 28, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe 28.
so when did they end up having you? How long after they were married?
When they moved to the farm.
So they had you when they moved to the
Oh,
farm?
they moved to the farm, I think, in about 29, probably. Because I was born in 31, and I was born on a farm east Evans, Colorado.
Anybody in your family born in a hospital?
Uh-huh.
Kids? Yeah.
Yeah, my sister was, and my two brothers, they was born in a
Greeley Hospital?
Yeah.
How did your parents meet?
How did my parents meet? I think, from what I gathered, my dad was working for my granddad, mother's dad, driving horses, of course, and my granddad had a little gravel pit he was running, and my dad was working for him. Horse and slips. Now that's something you probably never heard of before, but
Yeah, can you explain what that is?
these slips, they hooked a team of horses on them and then pull them. There's a little extra big scoop. There's an easy way to explain them. And they had a couple handles, and then gather the gravel up, and then they'd get over this hopper where they collected the gravel, and then flip them, and then dump it into a hopper. And then the old trucks in them days, this was back in the 20s, they had little dump boxes on them, but they would load up underneath these hoppers and deliver the gravel around. But a lot of them trucks even had solid rubber tires on them. But I think that's the way he met my mother, was probably through working there like
Mm.
that.
What were your grandparents' lives like?
They was really pioneers, my grandparents. I know they told about going here and there in covered wagons. And living on the range and things.
Where do they come from?
Excuse me, we'll have to, just a little bit louder, I'm afraid, we're just so short on sound here.
They, I think on my mother's side, her dad, I think, come from Germany, and her grandma from England. And on my dad's side, I think his folks come from Pennsylvania, out here. I think they had a pretty tough life, probably.
So, you were raised on the farm?
Yes, ma'am.
So like, what did you do while you were, like, working on the farm and stuff? What did that
Well,
entail?
You learn it from the time you grow up. You start milking cows when you're about 5, 6 years old.
Hmm.
Actually about 5. And you just learn everything as you go.
So, like, were you like more into like growing crops, or was it like more of a livestock kind of farm?
No, we had milk cows in them days on the livestock end of it. And you had you raised your own chickens, you had your own eggs, you raised your own hogs, so you had your own meat. And, but we had crops. We raised all our crops for our cattle. And we raised sugar beets and corn and pinto beans and different kinds of grain too at that time.
How much of it did you feed and how much of it did you sell?
Well, I'd say outside the sugar beets, we sold all of them, of course. They all went to the sugar factory. But actually, our hay, we never sold any of it.
No.
And our corn at that time. Pinto beans we sold. Couldn't eat that much jelly in it. But, yeah. But as far as the feed part, it all went through our own cattle.
Right.
Uh-huh. And then after we get our sugar beets harvested, we'd go out and we'd shock our beet tops.
Oh, you shocked beet tops?
We shocked them, and then we would haul them in on an old hay wagon with a team of horses and stacked them with the feed bunks, and we'd feed them to the livestock in the winter, along with the hay and everything. Same with the bean straw.
Oh, yeah.
You'd use some of it for bedding, but that eat a lot of bean straw,
Hmm.
along with everything else. It was a roughage.
So how did you get beets out of the ground
You had,
in those days?
you had a one-row puller.
First of all, can you describe
It-
how beets grow, what they look like?
Yeah, you plant them with a planter, of course, in 30-inch rows. Pardon me, there's only 22-inch rows on them. And then you have to go through and thin them. We used short-handled hose, crawled on your knees. Mother would make us patches, thick patches for our knees, and you'd have to thin them. And you have to irrigate them. And then later on, you'd hoe them for the weeds, and then when you went out to pull them and harvest them, they'd get about this big around on an average. Some of them was bigger than that. A few of them was smaller, but that's about the size of them. And you would have to gather them up, hit them, knock the dirt off, and then you'd make a row of them, of the beets. Put them in a row, and in between the rows, you'd take a homemade wooden V-type deal. You'd pull through there to make a path, and you'd have to stand on them rows of beets and top them with a beet top knife. It had a hook on it, on the end. And you'd hook them and lay the beet over your knee and top it, clean the tops off before you put it in this little V. And then when you got that done, then
And beets weigh 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, some of them it was all you could do to hold them on your knee.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to go through and hand load them with a fork onto a truck. Before the trucks, they had wagons that they'd pull with horses. And these wagons had trap doors on the boxes. And you get to the beet dump, you'd pull some boards outside, and it would let the beets out of these wagons, and then they'd go in railroad cars. These beet dumps in them days, you went up a little hill, and the railroad car would be underneath it, or it would auger into the railroad cars.
It all went by railroad in those days, didn't it? Because the Great Western Railroad was all over the countryside.
Yeah.
It went many places, and there'd be
Yes.
lots of different, what they called beet dumps, which was a place
Uh-huh.
where, within 2 or 3 miles of where you were.
Yes.
But it still took a long time to get a beet
It
out of the
would.
ground and hauled to the
Uh-huh.
dump.
So
And then,
how
Yeah.
long does it take a beet to grow? Actually, how long are you
you'd
working
plant
on this?
them long in March, and you'd harvest them and start harvest them in about the 6th, 8th of October.
Oh, wow.
And then it depends on how many you had, but it would take you a good month or 6 weeks to harvest them.
Hmm.
So it was quite a process. And you had to have irrigation water to irrigate them. And, it was our main cash crop. You know, we raised pinto beans for cash too, but I think in them days, it got to be more beets for cash than the beans.
Can you talk about what could go wrong out there on the farm?
Boy, everything hinged on when everything had to be right in place, you know. But then when they started, in the 30s, they started getting more trucks, but you still had to scoop them on, the trucks. And they didn't have hoists in them days. You get to the beet dump and they had an apparatus that you'd hook onto some hooks on the balls, beet balls, and it would dump it into this hopper and it would auger it into the railroad cars.
It was a lot of work. Even in my time, it was a huge amount of work. And in his time, it was 3 times that.
Like, how many people did you have harvesting, like, the beets and stuff, working on the farm?
Well, I had 3 brothers. My youngest brother, he never got in on much of that handwork at all, because he was a lot younger. But my older brother and I, we got in on a heck of a lot of it. And then we'd hire some neighbor people, or there was a family of Spanish people in LaSalle. They'd come out and work too on the farms. So you'd have to hire some extra help.
How many children were in your family?
There was 5 of us.
So you had 2 sisters and 3
I had
brothers?
1 sister.
Okay.
And there was 4 of us boys.
So, like, what did the sister do while you boys were out working on the farm?
She mostly just helped around the house and yard. My mother worked, she worked in the beets quite a bit too, on the handwork. A lot of the neighbor ladies did, and the children.
Did your parents pay you to work for them, or did you have to go elsewhere to get money?
Usually had to go elsewhere to get money. They'd give, if they had any, they'd give you a little allowance if they had it. No, it wasn't nothing steady. No. Saturday nights you'd go in town so they'd get groceries and things. They'd maybe might give you a quarter apiece or something. Of course, in them days, we went to a movie for 10, 15 cents.
So what was school like for you?
It wasn't too bad. We had good teachers, and they was, I'd say they was strict, but they, you know, we learned good. And we'd play ball and things on recesses and things like that.
Was it hard going to school and doing all of your work back home too?
Well, yeah, you didn't really work much homework in them days, because everyone knew how it was, that the kids, they had a certain amount of chores to do and things. And it worked out all right. The worst trouble was if we didn't have a pony or something to ride, we'd have to walk to school. I know the old stories, you walk miles to school, but it really was. It was 2.5 miles or so.
Each way for you, wasn't it? Yeah.
Each way, yes.
And it was real uphill going home.
And in the summertime, we would take our cattle down to his grandpa's farm. He had extra pasture. And on the way to school, we'd walk our cows down the road into the pasture. And then on the way home, we'd go pick them up and take them home. So it worked out pretty good. My older brother and I, we broke a couple shorthorn cows to ride. No bridle, no nothing. We'd get them all on them at the pasture, and we would tap them on side the neck with a stick to guide them, and them cows got so they'd take the rest of them home. Yeah, they was real tame.
Did you have school in winter time too? Did you have to walk in winter?
In the winter, usually Dad or somebody, the neighbors would take turns and try to take us to school. But we did, we rode a lot of winters on the horses. And we always rode them bareback. And by spring, where your leg, two to a horse, and by spring where your legs rubbed, the hair'd be rubbed off.
Oh.
But they would help keep your legs warm.
Would you say that your childhood was happy? Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I think you'd have to say so, because that's all we knew, you know. We made up our games and things to do. You'd play kick the kid can and hide and go seek, and you know, you created your own things to do. In the summer, the boys would play marbles and girls would play jacks, pick up jacks, things at recesses. But I'd say people was happy. I think they're happier in them days than they are now. Because they get together, the families would get together on weekends and Saturday nights. They never got babysitters. They always took kids with them if they went somewhere. And,
Well, I was just gonna say, jumping to a different topic. What are your memories of the Great Depression? Do you remember?
that was the Depression all through the 30s and when I grew up. Early 40s, it was, yeah. There wasn't any extra money, I'll put it that way. I remember several years, we had an old Model A car and an old Model A truck, and we had to have the truck. So Dad bought tires for the truck, but the car sat on blocks for 2 or 3 years straight one time. And us kids, when they'd take us to go somewhere, we'd put the car seats in the back of the truck. And if it was cold, why, we'd cover up with a quilt back there and ride back there in the truck. You know, looking back, I guess you couldn't say it was a lot of fun, but yeah, we all enjoyed it. Neighbor kids and all of us, we get together and do things together. And,
But electricity made a big difference.
yes, we never had electricity till 1941, and the REA come through. And that's still the best electric company there is the REA. There's no other utility that gives you dividends. Right to this day, REA, they'll still give you dividends back on your electricity.
Right.
In fact, I think my last one's just run out a year or so ago. I had them on both farms,
Right.
and then we had REA when we was up in the mountains too.
Did you have your own power when you were, did you have a generator?
Before we got electricity, we had a Delco system. And I can't remember for sure if your folks had that.
We did, yeah.
I thought they did.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of batteries that would store juice,
Okay.
you know, so you didn't have to run it constantly, like all night or something.
Right. Hmm.
But, yeah. And that was, I don't remember just what volt it was, but I know the wiring went interchange. When they come through with the regular electric, we all had to put in new wiring,
Right.
because it make it heavier, you know. Mhm. But we still used a lot of coil oil lamps and lanterns.
Can you explain what a coal oil lamp is?
Well, it's a glass lamp, and had a globe above, it had a wick that set down in the, I guess you could call it kerosene, probably be better. But it soaked up, and you just turn this wick up with a little knob until it stuck up just a little bit and light it. And that was your light. It's pretty hard to study by it or read a book by it or something, but, yeah.
I think the electricity bring a lot of changes to the operations on your farm.
Yes, even, a lot of people started getting milking machines and things to milk cows, you know. I myself never had a milking machine till, I think, about the middle 50s. That's hard to believe, but.
That's hard work.
Yeah, it was.
How many cows did you milk when you were?
When I was still home, we averaged 18. There was 3 of us milked, and we averaged 6 cows apiece
Right.
every morning and night. And you'd milk them before you went to school.
Right.
How long did it take to milk each cow?